What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Hope you have been able to keep up with all the Rebel Moon stuff going on from CCXP. If not, you can check out my channel for some updates, as well as social media, Netflix Brazil, Netflix's account, CCXP's YouTube, a bunch of places to see a lot of what was going down at CCXP for the Rebel Moon panel, as well as some reviews that people have been sharing that were actually there to watch the movie. And I also shared some reviews on my last video before this, so you can check out the channel if you're interested in that. And of course, don't forget to subscribe if you're not yet subscribed and you enjoy my content. So I want to talk about interesting comment today from Scott Stuber, who is the head of film at Netflix. And he's really the guy who gave the go-ahead for, Army of the Dead, Rebel Moon, all this stuff that Zach is doing at Netflix. And it's interesting because he was actually the person who gave the green light for Zach's first movie, Dawn of the Dead, as well. So it was cool for them to have this full circle moment and come back, together at Netflix. And clearly they have been super supportive and optimistic about, Zach being there and just giving him free reign and creative control over his IP and universes that he is making at Netflix. You're probably familiar with the Sell SnyderVerse to Netflix hashtag or, calling from a lot of the fans that would love to see the SnyderVerse move over to Netflix and be continued there in some way, which obviously I think that would be awesome in an ideal world, but it would definitely be a lot harder to make happen because it's hard to just buy a piece of something and have rights to all that includes. So it's not the same as just, we'll buy this one thing. And there's a lot of layers to that. And so, it's clear that they would be very supportive of whatever Zach wanted to do in that area if they were able to make that happen. But it's a lot more tricky than, Zach having his own IP there and being able to do whatever he wants because they don't own DC and they can't just buy that specific. It would be really difficult to just have that specific piece of DC. I guess most of us consider the Snyderverse to be Man of Steel, BVS, Zack Snyder's Justice League, and by extension, maybe the first Wonder Woman movie and Aquaman's first movie. That's kind of how I think of it, personally. But he did acknowledge it when he was asked a question about it. Scott Stuber acknowledged it. He acknowledged that he has seen, some of the fans kind of making this expression of wanting to see the Snyderverse continued at Netflix in some way. And he did say, that's always tricky because when you don't own it. Which is kind of what I was saying a second ago. And he continued by saying, obviously, we would like to license it at some point. We'd love to have it on so that fans can experience more Zach. This is my favorite part right here. The more Zach we have, the better we are. I just love that because whether or not that actually ever happens, I just love that attitude that they have about Zach. It's a complete 180 from the relationship, the treatment, just everything, the whole experience at Warner Brothers. From a fan's point of view, that's what it seems like. It's cool to know that whether or not it's possible, head of film at Netflix wants the Snyderverse as much as we do to be like, that's so awesome. And there is a suite of DC movies right now that just got added to Netflix. In some countries, in some regions, Zack Snyder's Justice League was on Netflix, but I think it was only in places where there was no HBO, platform or partner HBO, partner of HBO or something like that. So I think in some regions, Zack Snyder's Justice League was on Netflix. Could you imagine that being a global thing? Like, that would be amazing. Now, like he said, if they were able to make this happen at some point, they would have to license it because, they don't own it. And I think even if that were a possibility, there could be a lot of limitations to that. Like, say, for example, if they didn't just want to license those movies to have on Netflix for people to view them, what if they were like, we want to be able to have Zach continue it? That would be difficult, I think, because there could be limitations on what they would have access to as far as like characters and what they can mention and, would they have access to all the characters in Zach's universe? Zod, Feora, Perry White, and all that encompasses Lois Lane. if they were going to be like, oh, we want him to be able to bring in new characters, Green Lantern, continue with, Darkseid, all of that, it would be a lot. It wouldn't just be black and white, like, oh, you have access to the Snyderverse now, so you can do whatever you want with whoever you want. I don't think that would not be the case, but it is really cool to hear that Scott Stuber would like to license the Snyderverse at some point, in some way. Like, if that means having Man of Steel, BVS Ultimate Edition, Zack Snyder's Justice League on there, I think that alone would be awesome. And obviously, Zack Snyder's Justice League was not one of the movies that got added to Netflix recently, because I think Warner Brothers is being very stingy with it. It is a Max original, or HBO Max original, whatever. But they didn't even want to acknowledge it. They didn't even want to acknowledge its existence. They just would always just have blinders on when, they didn't want to hear anything the fans had to say about it. They were irritated about it. They didn't want anything to do with it until they were forced to at some point, right? And the movie came out. But even then, they were just like, that's it. It's out. We're not going to say anything. It's over with. It's done. Leave us alone about this. They didn't want to release any kind of numbers for it. They didn't even tell Zach and Deborah the numbers for it. They didn't do a theatrical run for it like Zach was under the impression they were going to do. They were just like, okay, it's out, now leave us alone. But now that people are like, okay, well, you're moved Man of Steel BVS, granted the theatrical version, but still, to Netflix for now, why not Zack Snyder's Justice League? But I understand it's an original thing and it had exclusivity rights for Max. But it seems like they're holding on to something that they didn't even want to support in the first place, which shows that they know it has value. They just don't want to outright say that, but I thought that was a really cool thing for him to say and express and acknowledge. And I love that point about the more Zach we have, the better we are. So I think it's really cool that he expressed that. And clearly they have shown so much support for them and want them to do as much as possible with, the Rebel Moon universe and everything. So I'm really happy for them. And if you saw any pictures and videos and stuff from CCXP of Zach and the cast, they all look super happy and just like, it's awesome to see that. So I wanted to share that because I thought it was an interesting comment from him. It's cool to know that they appreciate Zach's work and they know that he has a massive supportive fan base. And I think they're fans themselves, so it's pretty cool. But again, get caught up on all the Rebel Moon stuff and CCXP and all of that going on. I'm sure there's going to be more to continue to talk about in that area because they are going to go on this global press tour now. They're going to go to a number of cities to promote it. So I'm sure we'll be seeing pictures and videos from that too, and interviews and whatnot. So yeah, subscribe so you can stay up to date. And we're one day closer to Rebel Moon ourselves. But thank you guys for watching. Check out the links in the description, the short section on my channel if you're interested. And we'll see you soon.